Oh, well, I guess I'm just getting into it. I might have botched some things here, but oh well. It is what it is. This is the start of what I hope to be some regular installments on my channel here. Doing this as a regular series is kind of something I've been looking forward to, thinking to do. So hopefully I can make this a weekly thing. Hopefully I'll have the time and, the subject material to actually do it. I had a couple of things that I want to cover today. A couple of things I'm going to do on my own. Maybe I'll make it a regular thing to get people on here to discuss these issues with. But for now, it's just going to be me. So we have the writer's strike finally ends, and everyone's been talking about that. We have a couple of trailers that caught my eye, and we have tourism. Not the kind you would think where you go to another country, the kind that ruins everyone's hobbies. And finally, to finish it off, talking about a little bit of anime Rex and stuff like that. That things that dropped yesterday that I am particularly excited about and particularly enjoying. Also, if there's any noise coming from the background, that's going to be my fault because I have to have my windows open. It's hot as shit in here right now. You can hear the cars outside my house doing their thing. So probably should have my headset on. So I guess the first thing to get into would be all the writer's strike stuff. And I've heard a lot of conflicting information about exactly how these writer's strikes went down, but right now I do have a couple of articles I found that have some interesting information. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you. So now that it's all finally come to an end, we get to see exactly what they negotiated for. And I've heard a couple of conflicting reports, and I can only really source it to the quartering and disbrew. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But I wasn't able to confirm the rumors I heard that the production number has been cut from 600 projects down to 300. I did not find anything in my research to support that claim. Now, I didn't do a ton of research while I was looking for terms and what the results of this strike has been. But I did find this article. So the writers celebrate WGA deal as they return to work after a 148-day strike. Now, what it says is that, so members of Hollywood's writer union are celebrating a new deal with a 5% pay bump, streaming bonuses, and protection against AI as they return to work. Now, the protection against AI part is something that I have heard. I couldn't confirm this. Doesn't actually exist. It's kind of there on paper, but once you start reading the wording of it, there's a really easy way around it. And yeah, it's funky. Either way, the governing boards of the Eastern and Western branches of the Writers Guild of America both voted to accept a new deal, and afterward declared that the strike would be over and that the writers would be free to work starting 12:01 a.m. Wednesday. The writers still have to vote to ratify the contract themselves, but lifting the strike will allow them to work during that process, the Writers Guild told members in email. So they could just still outright reject this thing. I don't know if it's been officially confirmed, but Hollywood actors remain on strike with no talks yet on the horizon, while writers now being encouraged to walk in solidarity with actors. The 3-year agreement includes significant wins in the main areas writers had fought for: compensation, length of employment, size of staff, and control over the use of artificial intelligence. As part of the deal, the new contract raises basic wages by 5% in the first year, which is then followed up by a 4% rise in the second year and a rise of 3.5% in the third year. The Guild also said that the residual base amount and the compensation that is paid to writers for reruns, syndications, etc., will also increase, but at a lower rate. So that there it presents an interesting bit of a dilemma for these people. So they've been on strike for 150 days. That's like half a year. You have missed out on half a year's worth of money. And what that means is you're going to have to make up for that with the extra work you'll get. And if the rumors I've heard are true, that basically means, one, there's going to be half as much work as there's going to be half as much work as there was. They've cut it from 600 projects to 300. If that is true, if I'm not just pulling that out my ass. Now, with half as much work, you now have to make up for the half of your income that is gone, which means you're going to have to work like 5 to 6 years to make up for that lost income with the raises you've gotten. So has it been worth it to do this strike? Has it been worth it? Me as a consumer? No, I do not see any reason why these people should be paid more for the garbage that they write, especially demanding everything be written by committee. There are some shows that are like legitimately good that have come out in the past couple of years, but all of these people who are like making headlines for this strike stuff, they're like She-Hulk writers. Oh well. They're like She-Hulk writers. They're the kind of people who generally don't do good work. And they just load up the staff with a bunch of people who are their friends or are their political allies and write in their own struggle sessions and whatnot. And that'll be a bit of the topic for later when we start talking about tourism and all of that. But sorry, I'm having a bit of a second screen issue here. My second screen just decided it was going to poop out on me. Look, these slight increases in residuals and stuff, I don't think these people are actually going to make as much money as they think they are. There's also the idea that these streaming services are going to have to make their numbers available to their writers. A returning friend, nice to see you. If the companies are going to have to make their numbers for like streaming and stuff available, that's going to be interesting because we're finally going to see the actual like demographics on how much people are actually watching these shows, which is going to be really interesting when they try to claim like they have so many millions of views and such. We'll actually be able to fact check that, hopefully, if my sources are right on that. Either way, one sticking point of the negotiation has been the new dawn of streaming platforms, with writers not receiving a fair amount in residuals if their shows drew huge viewership figures. See, that is what I'm talking about right there. You can claim all you want that you're not getting paid fairly, but if you're writing a show like She-Hulk or Rings of Power that didn't actually get watched all that much, and you see the drop-off in the ratings on that stuff, you can claim you're getting paid unfairly when in reality, no one's really watching. And your residuals are really just that low. It was one of the funny things to come out of this whole writer's strike thing, where you had the writer for She-Hulk complaining that they only got paid like $300 in their residual check, which, I mean, $300 extra dollars. Hey, I'm okay with it. But this is a show that like was almost universally panned. Not a lot of people liked it. And you can go look at the audience score. It's like 34%. Or like Blood Origin. That was another crap one. Either way, now the WGA has managed to negotiate a system that allows writers to be compensated fairly, with viewership data also being shared with the Guild, which has been a central issue. The WGA also brought in regulations for studios and their use of artificial intelligence, which includes AI not being allowed to write or rewrite literary material. So here's the thing I've heard about the AI problem. Yeah, not a lot of people do, but it's finally over, and we're finally going to see some things out of this. And I'm discussing why the terms of this deal might not actually be as good as like they think it is. Like I talked about how already they're going to have to work they're going to have to work like 5-6 years at the rate that they had, or 5 to 6 years to make up for the money they lost striking, to make up for the income they didn't get while striking. So was it worth it? Who knows? If they're going to be employed longer than that, sure. But who knows how long this Hollywood model is going to collapse, and or how long this Hollywood model is going to last before it collapses. Because you already see people kind of like pulling out of it. The AI stuff is interesting because I've seen a couple of people talking about this. I couldn't find the articles they were referencing in their videos, but they're talking about how the conditions for using AI are really easy to work around. Like the writers themselves can use AI to help themselves. It's just the studio can't. So what the studio can do is they can hire someone to be like a writer on staff and just use AI. And now they no longer have to go through the Writers Guild of America. So there is no protection from AI. AI is still in the field. AI is still going to be used for story writing. It's just that they made sure that the studio didn't just fire every single writer and use AI instead. Look, my philosophy on it is if you're really so uncreative that you're worried about AI replacing you, you might not have been a very good writer to begin with. Just a little bit of a tip. But let's finish off this article before I get into any more of that. The Writers Guild Negotiating Committee said that the Writers Guild of America reached a tentative agreement with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers on the new 3-year minimum basic agreement. On September the 26th, the negotiation committee, the WGAW board, and the WGAE council all voted unanimously to recommend the agreement. It will now go to both guilds' membership for ratification vote. So again, they can still throw this out, which is why I cover this. You're looking at, you've lost money that's not going to be recuperated for something like 4 to 5 years. You need to think about this stuff financially when you're out on your own. Like the money you lose now, the money you waste now, is going to seriously compound in the future. So who knows how much that money could have been if used properly going into the future. Eligible voters will be able to vote from October 2nd through October 9th and will receive so they still haven't even started on voting for this. So who knows what's going to happen with this. And will receive a ballot and ratification material when the votes open. The WGAW board and the WGAE council also voted to lift restraining order and end the strike as of 12:01 a.m. Wednesday, September the 27th. So writers are allowed to go back to writing now. You're no longer considered a scab, which which is basically just a term for someone who needs to make money and doesn't care about all the gang shit that this writers guild is doing. This allows writers to return to work during the ratification process, but does not affect the membership's rights to take final determining action on council approval. Thousands of film and television scribes downed their pens in early May over demands including better pay, greater rewards for creating hit shows, and protection from artificial intelligence. I mean, we already they man to pick the lines for months outside the office, including Netflix and Disney. Mid-July, culminating Sunday with hundreds of films and shoots being backed up again. Nobody cares. So now it's just down to the actors, and it looks like, if I can get my second screen working properly, it looks like the only consequence of this is that costs, one, are going to be passed off on consumers. Two, these people might have just hurt themselves really badly financially, which sucks for them. Financial troubles are always awful. And three, they haven't gained much on the AI front, if what I've heard is true. I cannot find the specific article that I was referencing here. That's not. What was this? I got a couple of articles pulled up here. That's the best and final offer. The next entertainment industry. Okay, yeah, nothing that didn't already cover. What we're looking at for these people is kind of an interesting situation. So now you have the writers who are still, out there striking. Some of the actors are still out there striking. Some of the writers might still continue striking in solidarity. I don't think that's going to be very effective. I don't think you're going to have much of effect if most of your industry has already gone back to working and you're out here striking on behalf of another industry that's kind of related, but not. I haven't cared either way about these entertainment strikes because most of my entertainment comes from anime nowadays. I do watch like a few things here and there, like Terminal List. I'll go see a couple of movies now and then with friends. I watched One Piece live action. But like, I'm not really into all of these like big popular shows. Like, I haven't watched Game of Thrones. I need to, but I haven't. I haven't watched House of Dragons. I was looking forward to Dune. That's one that hurts. Dune Part 2. I was looking forward to that one. I loved the first one. Thought it was great science fiction. It wasn't like the action shooty pew pew stuff you get out of Star Wars, but it was definitely like a really solid take on science fiction. There's no arguing that. But I haven't been affected by this. I don't think a lot of people have been affected by this. And if you watch It's a Gundam's channel, when he's talked about it, like there are legitimate strikes that you're worried about. Like when like UPS or truckers decide that they're going to strike. That could mess up, like, if I'm not getting my manga deliveries on time, I'm going to be upset. But if someone's just not writing a shitty rendition of Velma, I don't care. I don't care. If someone's not actively butchering My favorite properties? Actually, I prefer they stay on strike. I prefer some of these people never pick up a pen again. And yes, okay, we can have the argument that some writers actually do deserve to be paid. The issue is, I think those writers actually do get paid because they produce things that are hits. But the people who are out there striking, the people who are the most vocal about it, the people who are going to be affected the most by this, I do not think they deserved the extra pay that they got out of this. That's why I think this whole writer's strike has been a failure from both ends. These people haven't really secured as much as they are toting, especially if, like I keep saying, if what I have said is true, and that the writer's AI protections are solely limited to the studio cannot use the AI to write or rewrite literary material. If that's all it is, and if the writers are still allowed to use AI, studios can just hire a writer to be on staff instead of doing the whole gig work thing. And boom, you're using AI and you're not violating your contract with the guild. That's what I've heard about it anyway. It's been a mess. It's been a hot freaking mess. But I think I want to move on to some of the other subjects. So I found a couple of trailers, ones that sort of interested me. One of them is like a Disney movie, an animated Disney movie that I thought like the concept of was going. There's some interesting things about it, and I will just pull it up now because this thing could be one of the dopiest Disney movies they come up with. So I'm not going to play the trailer here, but I do kind of want to talk about it. One of the things is basically like, so the whole premise is you have a guy who's the king of this country, and he has magic that allows him to grant the wishes of his people. So he goes and he takes an apprentice, which is, the main character.
2, 1. Asha! I'm here.
To be fair, I do kind of like the animation style on it. But this chick, main character, as you can already see, standard sort of haircut. Which trailer is boring? Yeah, actually, I thought it was. But the one thing I thought was hilariously weird about it is, again, their main villain, the guy they're setting up to be the main villain, the king, whose ability to grant wishes he uses to grant the wishes of his people. But he's a villain because he doesn't go out and grant the wish of every person there. Now, there are some good storytelling elements you can get to this, or get out of this. You can have this be a good story about how Asha makes a mistake in granting everyone's wishes. You can make the argument that this could end up being like a good story about someone who makes a huge mistake and has to undo it. And Asha could be the villain in her own story by accidentally granting wishes that should not be granted, like Peter wishes for Paul's wife. That's not a wish you just grant. Or John wants Ken's house. Those are wishes you don't grant. You cannot tell me that every single one of these people who makes a wish isn't making a selfish wish. There's going to be a few of those in there. So this idea that all wishes should be granted, verifiably false. If you make the story about the fact that Asha has made a mistake and now she has to go about fixing it, and if it were a story about her learning the proper use of this magic, that would be a good story. But I have no faith in Disney to pull something like that off. Zero faith. Disney has not given me a single reason to think that this series or this movie will have a good story. What I'm guessing is that it's going to be straight white dude bad because straight white dude who won't grant wishes. And female character good because she gives everyone what they want. Which is just a fundamentally flawed form of logic. Oops, I'm trying to remove that. Stop sharing. It could be better if Asha was a girl who encountered a magical fairy who transported her to a magical world of wishes. Maybe, in my own opinion. You see, when I do these things, I like to try and like talk about it in as few moves as possible, as I like to say. Change as few things as you can about a series to try and improve it. Because once you start changing like very, very core elements, you start changing the entirety of the series and what it was meant to be. And my neighbor's dog is going ham out there. I don't know if you can hear it, but like he is just barking up a storm. Anyway, so the reason I say the best option for them with this kind of story would have been to have Asha accidentally enable villains by granting their wishes, which she then has to go out of her way to correct, to find a way to reverse those wishes. It's a story where the hero is flawed and their idealistic logic causes problems, and they sort of have to like embrace the reality of not everyone's wishes need to be granted. Not everyone's wishes are good. But I doubt that's going to be what Disney does with this. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So yeah, that is Wish. I don't particularly have a problem with the animation style. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm alluding to. Could be a better story if, like, she made a wish that led to unintended consequences. Like, she already proves to be kind of an impulsive character who doesn't think about what she's doing. But we know how Disney's going to be. We know that, you know, the Force is female, the MCU, all of that stuff, regardless of how cringe or whatever you want to talk about that, or cringe you want to consider that. Disney is full on board the train of no woman can ever truly do anything evil. They're always misunderstood villains. Which, I mean, sometimes that kind of storytelling works, but personally, I prefer my villains to just straight up be evil. Because they're evil people who think they're doing the right thing for the wrong reason. One of the reasons I think Pain and Madara are such great villains in Naruto. Pain and Madara are convinced that what they're doing is going to make the world better. The ends justify the means. That is what makes a great villain. That simple concept there. They're willing to do what they have to because they are genuinely convinced that what they're going to do is right. Not some misunderstood like villain crap like, oh, well, he just had a tragic backstory and he just wanted this and no. Like the Joker. Joker's another great villain who it's not even like the ends justify the means. He's just demented. He's twisted. He's sick in the head. But there is one more trailer I do want to get to, and I kind of had a couple of them, but I'm not going to cover the other ones just for time and because I do not want to I don't want to tempt fate with the copyright system. But there is one other trailer that I want to cover because it actually kind of looked interesting. And that is Netflix. Devil May Cry. Now, this is just a teaser trailer, and I know absolute jack shit about Devil May Cry. So, whether or not this is going to be a good adaptation or not, I don't know. I do not know. Point is, I saw some potentially cool animated project pop up in my feed. Figured I'd give it a try. Okay, right off the bat, animation kind of looks good. I mean, genuinely looks it was 2 years ago, was it? It says 3 days. Or maybe I'm just misunderstanding you. Either way, I mean, animation kind of looks a lot better than some. It looks better than a decent chunk of things we get. It looks a little bit more anime-esque, like they're kind of embracing the anime philosophy of action combat sequences. I'm liking the music too. So obviously, just a teaser trailer. Oh, the He-Man stuff from 2 years ago. Okay, I get you. Yeah, the He-Man situation. Um, the He-Man situation is a whole bucket of chaos. That just didn't need to happen. And the more you look, I was actually like, I listened up a bit on that situation recently with how like Clownfish TV got like some leaks from people who were on the inside of that project. And then Kevin Smith basically, cried foul, said it wasn't actually that way, and turned out to be exactly like Clownfish TV was right. And Clownfish TV got like blasted for saying that about Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith proved to be a fake fan, which we're going to talk about when we get to tourism and stuff. But yeah, the Devil May Cry thing looks interesting to me, and I'll check it out. But that's probably because I'm not a huge Devil May Cry fan. In fact, the only thing I know from Devil May Cry is the Virgil memes and Devil Trigger. That's about as familiar as I am with Devil May Cry. Some hardcore fans I saw had a bit more of a problem with Devil May Cry. So I might get chewed out for saying I think it kind of looks good. But that remains to be seen, I guess. We'll see how all this goes. And with that, I'm going to move into like the biggest subject that I wanted to touch on today, touch on for the show, and maybe we'll run for longer in the future. This will probably go for another like hour or an hour. This will probably go for another like half an hour or so because I got 2 more things to get to. That is FRIEREN Beyond Journey's End and tourism. And we're going to touch on tourism now. Oops. Because it is kind of a big issue that not a lot of people talk about. So for those of you unaware, tourism refers to, or a tourist in reference to like fandom and stuff is someone who effectively pretends to be a fake fan, or someone who effectively pretends to be a fake fan. And a lot of times they act in a way that pushes a lot of people out of their hobbies. So like here I have a post from someone I follow, V, and what they do for a living, I'm not particularly attached to it. I just follow this person because they pop up in my feed a lot regardless, and I generally tend to agree with their takes on fiction and on anime and animation in general. So they had this basically to say about some things that have been happening in the anime community and with the way people have been reacting to certain shows, particularly My Hero and Demon Slayer. So the community, so it's basically in reference to this whole conversation about the way certain fans are treated. The community of people who enjoy doing things to childlike anime characters will obviously cause repulsion and will never be accepted into the mainstream. It's also perfectly natural for people to feel disgusted by it. Yes, most fans generally do feel disgusted by those kinds of degenerates. However, 3 months ago, since Vice released their documentary called Into the Pedophile Culture of Anime and Manga, I have noticed an attack not against childlike characters as you would imagine, but against mainstream anime shows like My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer, shows that are not pornographic whatsoever. This is true. And you see a lot of things that are like, I'll get into like more of the anime stuff in a bit, but you see a lot of stuff posted about like how the Japanese treat their art. They incorporate a lot of fan service, and now take fan service and stuff how you will. If you're really such a prude about the whole booba thing, then maybe anime just never was for you. Anyway, the attack is very similar to what games, comics, and entertainment in the West experienced, but instead of shaming tactics such as sexist, racist, now it's pedophilic. In other words, they claim that if a character who is 17.9 years old in canon, and despite being voiced by a mature woman, written like an adult, and having tits bigger than all of Marvel's heroes put together, as long as they show any sort of cleavage or leg, then you must be a child molester for watching anime. This is one of like the big misconceptions that like Vice put into their whole thing. And now we all know Vice is retarded, I'm sure. But the fact of the matter is that like, why are these like tourists treating people like they're evil because of a character that's not actually sexualized in any way? We'll get into that. They attack the entire art for saying that anime has large eyes on purpose to make them look like a child. And he basically goes into like why these concerned trolls are stupid. And that brings us to the subject matter. What is tourism? A tourist is a fan who attempts to be a part of a fandom while pushing others out. Effectively, they're not interested in the actual fandom or the actual series that they're talking about. They're interested in the control. A tourist often tries to change things based on their ideological tendencies and not out of genuine love for the hobby. And you see this a lot. You see it with anime, with a lot of people talking about like, the Lomar and Kitagawa stuff, like save her from this series. And it's an entire misconception that I can get into, and I will. But they don't actually care about the series. They don't actually care about what the message of that series is, about loving your hobbies, being who you are, and not being ashamed of being a nerd. They see it, and they see the fact that, you know, this chick who's in high school likes to dress up. And a show that is targeted at a teen male audience shows things that teen males would like. Booba. The tourist does not actually care about the property. They don't actually care about the fandom. They care about taking it over and making it theirs and making it conform to their ideology, because it's just another sector of the entertainment industry that hasn't been conquered. That's why you see a lot of people coming after anime and a lot of anime fans pushing back. They have no love of the original intent of the creator or its original fans. And they're only drawn to it by the rise in popularity of said thing, and they'll only be there until it's destroyed. They don't care about the people actually enjoying it. They don't care about who likes it. They don't care about what the original intent of the creation is. They just want the control over it. And now this is one thing I do have to make a distinction with, is criticism is not tourism and tourism is not criticism. A tourist wants to change the very nature of whatever it is they're getting into. A critic finds flaws and points them out. Just because I can find a flaw in something does not mean I want it like completely changed. Just does not mean I want the whole series changed. A tourist often does things out of bad faith. A tourist is someone who comes in and wants to inflict their ideology on something because it's popular and because they want to be the center of attention. Their headcanons end up being more important than the actual canon. You see this a lot with like My Hero Academia. You have people shipping Bakugo and Deku. You have people shipping all sorts of weird relationships that just don't make sense. Or like the Jujutsu Kaisen stuff. You see a lot of like the headcanons with like Suguru Geto and Satoru Gojo. As funny as it is, because that series just gives all sorts of vibes, again, it's one of those like headcanon problems where like, what's more important? What's actually written or what's in your head? And a good example of how tourism can destroy a series, look at Gundam Witch from Mercury. It was a series that was almost entirely meant to cater to the Western audience. And not a whole lot of Gundam fans liked it, from what I understand. Didn't watch it, didn't care to. I don't care either which way about Gundam as a whole. But when Bandai Namco, or when Bandai, however you say that, decided they were going to decanonize, quote unquote, the lesbian marriage of two characters, and just say that the ending of the series is up to interpretation, because they wanted to sell better in non-American countries. People had a fucking freak out session. They lost their ever-loving minds. It's like Twitter discovered the eclipse for the second time. Yet another example of tourism. Twitter discovering the eclipse was hilarious, because like they missed the entire point of it. Anyway, a tourist does not actually like the series, and a tourist and a normie are two different things. Do not call normies tourists. Do not call tourists normies. Normies are people with a genuine interest in a series and are just getting into it and don't know much. A tourist is someone who's only there to inflict their own will on something, to domineer it and control it until it's no longer convenient for them to make themselves the center of attention. You see this with like Warhammer 40K. They search out the problematic content in the series and piss and moan about it. Yes. Now, Berserk is my favorite manga of all time. It's one of my favorite pieces of fiction of all time. But that was the point of the Eclipse. That's kind of not what I'm talking about. The point of the Eclipse was to make you hate Griffith because he is scum, he is evil, and he did absolutely some of the most evil shit you can do. That is why the Eclipse is written that way. And I will defend Berserk to the death. It is written in a way that sort of embraces the darkness and awful parts of humanity without glorifying or making them seem like this is how you're supposed to be or like this is justifiable. Anyone who tells you that Griffith did nothing wrong, red flag, red flag, red flag. When Twitter found out about Berserk, they weren't enraged in the sense that they hated the characters. They were enraged that something like that would be depicted. They were enraged that they would depict Griffith being absolutely evil. Yes. Yes, that's why I think he's one of the most effective villains of all time. Because there is no way you can misunderstand him. He is just straight up evil. And like the setup for everything he did was perfect. Even though you knew the end result from the beginning of the series. It lured you in with this sort of charismatic, enjoyable character. And then revealed to you just how vile of a man he actually was. He was willing to betray his friends, sell their souls to demons for power. He did the Eclipse to Casca. And it was so hard on her that like it mentally broke her until like one of the most recent arcs in the series. Which, rip Kentaro Miura. And there was supposed to be some Berserk news this weekend. I was told that the 29th was going to have some information on Berserk, and it didn't. Come on. Rip. Anyway. Tourists should be gatekept out of communities. They are not people acting in good faith. Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm talking about with the Eclipse. He sacrifices tons of people to the God Hand. Griffith did nothing wrong, crowd. Probably suffered TBIs and probably needs to suffer another one. In Minecraft. Like there are legitimately two characters in fiction that I think are some of the most evil, vile, scummy people in the world. And ironically, they're both from very popular anime and manga. There's Griffith, and then there's Tucker What's-His-Nuts from Full Metal Alchemist. The guy who not only sacrificed his wife, but his daughter too, just for status. They are both absolutely evil people. Griffith is like Judas. Yeah, pretty much. Except for Judas didn't lead that whole band. Griffith is worse because while Judas simply just, sold everyone out, Griffith went out of his way to actively fuck everyone over. and make the survivors watch as he did what he did. It's unimaginable kinds of cruelty. But yes, tourism is a problem with a lot of fandoms. It's what broke Star Wars. Star Wars started catering to the Reylos, who only cared about shipping Kylo Ren and Rey. And now everything Disney Star Wars is non-canon. I do not accept it as canon. But you've seen basically what's happened to Star Wars now with how it's, collapsed into almost irrelevancy. Even the best stuff that people have praised out of Star Wars, like Andor, is unwatched. They started catering to tourists and ideologues and to each other. There were people who didn't actually care about the fandoms or the original intent or the original world. They cared about themselves and their own ideology, and that is what ruined Star Wars. It isn't corporate greed. It isn't anything other than the people in charge of making it, the people in charge of the project, no longer cared about their fans. They no longer cared about the actual project. They only saw a way in which to drive attention to themselves. And that is the quintessential mark of a tourist. Someone who just wants the attention. They want to be a part of the thing because of what the thing can do for them. So yeah, I do think tourists have no place in any sort of fandom. Normies welcome. People with a genuine interest in learning. People with a genuine interest in manga. I love it, like meeting people who actually have like a genuine interest in getting into something I love. People who have a genuine interest in science fiction, people who have a genuine interest in just anything. Those are the people you let in. But you gatekeep the hell out of anyone who is only doing it for themselves and the attention it can drive to them. The people who care about their headcanons, who care about being politically correct, who care about problematic material, who want to change an entire series just to fit a certain political agenda, those people do not belong. They don't deserve to be accepted in. They have shown no good faith towards the fandom. Fuck them. Fuck them. And now that it's coming for anime, you see how it's like hit the Tolkien fandom. You have all these people like secretly gay, or not secretly, gay shipping Sam and Frodo because they were really, really good friends. And I love C.S. Lewis's quote on that. How those people are basically telegraphing to you that they've never had a real friend in their life. But this idea that Sam and Frodo are somehow like yes. Thank you. See, the thing about like Berserk is such a good series. And like, yes, I'm really excited because part of me knows that Guts is going to absolutely mess these people up on his way to get his revenge on Griffith. But at the same time, it also feels like it might be a little like it could go either way. But Berserk Deep Dive is something I'll probably do at a later date. Probably do like a whole like anime autopsy kind of thing where I get someone to come on here with me and we just talk in depth about like everything Berserk, all the great parts of it, just really pick it apart. I wanted to do one for Bleach today, but I decided it might run a little long if I try to get into all my beef with Bleach and all that, especially if like I have someone who has the opposite opinion of me, someone who comes on here and who loves Bleach and wants to argue with me, which I'm totally down for. If you get a different opinion than me, I'm totally down to hear it. But today I'm going to touch on one of the shows that just dropped. I'll probably do a video on it here in the future. But if you haven't heard of, let's see if I can bring it up here. Nope, that would be removing myself. Because I absolutely loved the hell out of this show. This manga is one I picked up and then found out that they were going to be making an anime out of it. And I have been really excited for this one. So excited that I did something I don't normally do, and I watched it subbed. And it was good. It was really good. It strikes such like a perfect balance of emotion in its storytelling. Like you get that sort of like somber, sort of regretful tone to it. But at the same time, there's lots of stuff that's like happy and upbeat about it. And it's just downright a beautiful series. So if you're looking for a good one to pick up, FRIEREN Beyond Journey's End or Soso no FRIEREN, depending on which version of the title you want to go with. Whether you do the manga or the anime is beautiful. The manga is great. I love it. I'm going to continue reading it. The music for this series is perfection. It is divine. You have Yoasobi doing another one of the most banger anime OPs of the year. It's just good. It's so good. It's so good. But yeah. This is kind of like serving as like a trial session for how I want to do these. And it's really going to be just a lot of covering like animation and anime, cartoons, comics. Maybe I think next week I'll be doing a lot of indie coverage because I have tons of projects. Like sitting here, I have stuff from Ethan Van Sciver, Von Kloss. Who else do I have? I think I have Red. Yeah. Sean Steffens from Art Attack. He did Red, a cyberpunk fairy tale. Love it. I have a couple of other indie projects I need to check out. I know there's a guy, he does a channel, Talk and Draw. He has a manga series that he's been writing out that is 4 volumes deep, The Girl with the Mega Fists. That should be arriving soon. I have stuff like Ghost of the Badlands coming. Lots and lots of indie stuff that I've gotten in on that I'm just going to have to cover here soon. So I might do a little bit of a catch up on next week's one. And hopefully I can get a guest to come on with me and talk about some of this stuff, or just talk about some of the news in general. Either way, I'm going to try to make this a regular thing. I'm going to try to do this every Saturday at around the same time. Hopefully, next week, I can do Thanks for tuning in. Love having you. Hopefully next week I can do the indie stuff and cover and do the Bleach stuff. But it was a little last minute to invite someone on. I didn't feel like it would be polite to just like interrupt their weekend all of a sudden. So it's what it is. I had plenty to talk about anyway, and I didn't want to make this super long because there are other things I need to do today. And trust me, the Bleach discussion could have probably gone on for 2 to 3 hours. If there are any recommendations on manga or independent comics or anime that anyone watching this would like me to cover, I'm all ears. I'll give it a try. Some things I might reject just on the surface. I might give it a shot, but I'm always open to hearing other people's suggestions. Always love getting some recommendations from people who are genuinely interested. But I genuinely do have to call it an end at that. We have hit the hour mark. I have covered the things I wanted to cover. Hopefully in the future, I can make this a bigger, longer thing. Thank you to everyone who's been here, for whether it's the fierce apathetic black queen, or whether it's RG Energy, which I have streamed with him before. Thank you for even tuning in for just a second. That's it. Later. No awkward pauses as I end this stream. It's not going to happen. I'm going to keep talking right up to the end. It's going to keep going.